It's Monday, January 8th, 2024. Please make sure to like this video, share it, and make sure you subscribe to this channel. Without further ado, I want to get right into what's happening today. Big day on the markets. Markets absolutely surging. More market euphoria. But it's amazing when you really look to what is happening to the U.S. economy, the U.S. worker. It is shocking to see the detachment from these markets to reality. It's like a complete magic trick. And at some point, the magic will become reality. And the reality is this economy, the average person in this country is in very, very big trouble. Mortgage rate decline pulls buyers back into the housing market. This on CNBC today. So everything is fine. You should go buy a house because mortgage rates aren't 8%, they're 7.06%. So that makes it all so much better to pay for an overpriced house. Now you're only paying 7.06%. That's bankrate.com on a 30-year fixed. You're only paying 7.06% on an overvalued house. I mean, it is amazing how they are trying to sucker people back into the housing market, back into the stock market. And look, I have nothing against the stock market, even though most would agree this is the most overvalued stock market in U.S. history. But nonetheless, Dow Jones up 216 points today. NASDAQ up 319 points. Last night I was watching these markets. They were getting beat up. Dow Jones was down 141 points before I went to bed. We still have the 10-year floating right at about 4%, and that's going to be a problem for mortgage rates. But do you think this is a good time to buy a house? Would you buy a house in this market right now? I certainly think this is still one of the worst possible times to buy a home. I disagree with Dave Ramsey. I'm sorry. I think you've got to be out of your mind to buy a home, especially with all the uncertainty, the volatility of these markets. And we know everything is so overvalued at this moment. I would not touch a house with a 10-foot pole. Sorry, can't do it. There's no way you can justify these prices. How long can it go on? I have no idea. But when we look at this article on Fox Business, initial U.S. employment reports overstated by 439,000 jobs in 2023. Also, we have 8.7 million Americans currently working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. And yet we're being told that the housing market's just going to keep exploding, that every American's going to be able to go out and buy a home. What is going to support this real estate market, this housing market, when people are losing jobs? You've got nearly 9 million people working multiple jobs, and I think that's an understatement. I think that's a very conservative number. I think it's higher than that. You have so many people now, working part-time jobs, taking on the side hustles, and you have a savings rate of what, 3.5%? People can't save enough money to buy a house. What is going to sustain this housing market when you have people falling deeper and deeper into debt, their credit's being destroyed, their savings being destroyed, their purchasing power is being destroyed? I don't get it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see how this is possible. But yet they're telling you you should go out and buy a house. Now, here's one from The Hedge today. Consumer credit shocker. November debt soars after second biggest surge in credit card debt on record. So just like many of you who will write in the comments, people I talk to daily, just thinking to myself as I'm out and I see people, driving around, maybe at the restaurants, shopping, going to Las Vegas, you just ask yourself, how are people affording to do anything at this point when you know that the economy is decaying? And I ask myself daily, just when I see people driving down I-10 to go to Glamis, they've got, a $200,000 sand rail, a $500,000 RV, they've got, they're driving a big diesel F-350, and you got to think, like, what's a 3-day weekend going to cost? And people just seem to keep going and going while their savings is collapsing alongside real wages are collapsing also. So how does this continue to go on? It seems like, you're asking yourself the same thing. I don't see people being affected by this. People seem to be doing better than ever. They're driving the cars, the RVs, life goes on. Well, this is how they're doing it according to this article. According to the latest monthly consumer credit report from the Fed, In November, consumer credit exploded by, get this, $24.75 billion, blowing away expectations of a modest $9 billion increase. $24.75 billion. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how people are doing this. This was the biggest increase since last year, November, and was the first $20 billion plus print since January of 2023. We saw a massive surge in revolving credit. November, it exploded by a whopping $19.13 billion, a record surge from $2.9 billion in October, the second biggest monthly increase in credit card debt on record. Now, you also have to take into account the interest rate on the average credit card. Well, the average rate for the fourth quarter was a record 22.75%, and that was for the second quarter in a row. The bulk of holiday spending was on credit, a time when the personal savings rate in the U.S. has collapsed back to near multi-decade lows. I think the savings rate is about 3.5%, 3.4%. So Americans continue to follow the footsteps of the U.S. government by spending money they don't have while throwing all caution to the wind. Unbelievable. They are charging everything. We just see now this spending bill of $1.6 trillion, and we're looking at people blowing up massive amounts of debt at 22.75% to continue the lifestyle. They're putting purchases on buy now, pay later plans just to go to the grocery store. People, think about where we're at right now. While we watch people at the restaurants, people at the resorts, people driving down the freeways with their RVs and their dirt bikes and their sand rails and their boats. Think about now millions of people financing their grocery bill. This is reality. I cannot imagine how bad this is going to get. I can't even imagine what's going to come next. But people are going to fight this all the way to the end as long as they have the ability to borrow money to support their lifestyle. They're going to do it. And people, you can see them right now. They are not going to give in to what's happening. They're not going to face reality. They're going to continue to spend and spend and spend. Unfortunately, it's money they don't have at 22.75%. What happens when they come to the end of the road? What happens when they can't pay this money back? What happens when reality finally comes to America? What is the average person going to do then? I can't imagine what this is going to look like. Here's another one today from The Hedge. These are the most house poor states. What is house poor? Well, it's spending too much money on housing relative to your income. So this means you have very, very little money left after you make that house payment. Little money left to pay the bills, little money left to save, little money left for an emergency. People don't care. They just want that house. It doesn't matter that they can't afford it. They want it. And a lot of people bought way too much house than they could afford, and they're going to learn a very valuable lesson here. 30.8% of this nation is house poor. That's nearly 31%. 31 out of 100 people are house poor. 37.2% of these people have a mortgage. 20.8% don't have a mortgage. Here's something that's shocking, but not shocking. 43% of Californians are house poor. Living way above their means. Very, very common here in California. 42.4% of Hawaiians, 39.3% of New Yorkers are house poor. 37.7% of people in New Jersey, house poor. 37.1% of the people in Massachusetts, house poor. You can check out the article and go down the list. But people are being set up to lose it all. And there is an emergency coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. And these people are going to lose everything. They're going to lose their homes. We saw this movie back in 2008, but this one's going to be a lot worse. There is so much debt out there. And so many people house poor. You can't even compare this to 2008 now. This is a whole different animal. But I mean, I'm looking at California. 43% of this state is house poor. That's an astronomical number. That is, I mean, that is unbelievable. Think that every 4 or 5 homes out of 10, they're house poor. That's amazing. That is amazing. Wolfstreet.com. Used car wholesale prices have given up 53% of their crazy health crisis price spike. It says here auction prices drop when dealers go to replenish their inventory, when they buy less and are more skittish about bidding up prices and would rather walk away empty-handed than to overpay, knowing that they're facing pricing resistance among their customers. So, you know, sooner or later, you know, people just are not going to be able to afford these cars. And at some point, we're seeing used car prices coming down, new car prices maybe a little bit, but I think at some point that even new car prices are going to have to come down. But this is a pretty big number, 53% from the height of the health crisis. You know, people aren't willing to just pay whatever now for a vehicle. And I think they would if they could, but all the free money has evaporated. And so not that they wouldn't, they're forced now that they just can't. They're forced to walk away because they don't have that easy money and they don't have access to cheap, easy money. So the average person now, look, if they could get cheap, easy money or free money, of course, the average American would do it. But now they're forced to walk away because they don't have the money. They don't have the cheap money to borrow. They're not getting stimulus checks. They're not getting benefit checks. So today's a different day. It's a much different market than it was back in 2022. That is for sure. Now, shifting gears here a little bit. I was just reading this article and watching this video in the New York Post. These older dudes get into a fight at Nissan Stadium. It was a football game, Titans versus Jaguars. These guys are like in their 70s, duking it out in the parking lot. And, you know, I watch these videos daily of what's taking place in society, and I'm watching old people in a parking lot at a football game duking it out for whatever reason. It's just absolutely shocking. And, you know, when I see this, I can't imagine what this is going to look like down the road when people are this far out of their minds right now that they would go to this extent at a football game. What happens when people get hungry? What happens when people get desperate? Here's another one today from the Post. Woman pushing baby stroller whacked overhead with metal rod in distressing video. This happened about 2 hours from here, Long Beach, California. This happened right after some 60-year-old woman was struck in the head previously a couple hours earlier. So this was the second assault in just hours. But think about who in the world walks around. They have video of this guy walking down the sidewalk with a steel rod in his hand, just looking for people to smash in the head. And he walks up to a lady pushing a baby stroller and whacks her in the head. She's bleeding all over the place. You got to be careful out there, ladies and gentlemen. You know, when I watch disturbing videos like this, which every day, they're everywhere. You can Google these things. You can YouTube these videos. You can go to the Post. Every day we're watching instances like this occur, and it's becoming very, very common. You have got to be extremely careful out there. Make sure you're exercising situational awareness. Make sure that you're really paying attention. Don't be walking around on your cell phone. That's one of the worst things, one of the dumbest things you could be doing in public, walking around, walking down the street with a cell phone. You're setting yourself up to being a victim of one of these lunatics or some other sort of crime. But, you know, where are we as a society when some loser walks up to a woman with a child and whacks her over the head with a steel rod? Comment down below. Why are we seeing so much of this, and why are we accepting this? Where is the law? Here's another one. And this one just really has nothing to do with any of this, but Jennifer Lopez offers a sneak peek inside her new Beverly Hills mansion. I bring this up because as I was reading some of these other articles and watching some of these videos, this one came up, and it's this beautiful home in Beverly Hills, probably 25,000 square feet. And what I find amazing is that there are 15, minimum 15 air conditioning units on the roof of this house. They have an aerial shot of the home. It's enormous. It is a palace. It is a compound. I counted at least 15 air conditioning units on the roof of this house. But yet I'm told that I need to not wash my car. I need to take, a short shower. I need to conserve all my water. We need to be shutting off our air conditioning, after 5 o'clock out here. But Jennifer Lopez has 15 plus air conditioning units on top of her house. What do you think about that? Comment down below. And I will finish with this last one. As we are being told that everything in the economy as well, even though nearly 9 million people are working multiple jobs, and it's probably much higher than that. Savings rate at 3.4%. Half this country doesn't have $400 or $500 saved up. Most people are oblivious to what is about to happen to them. And I mean, what can we say? I mean, too bad for them. I'm glad I'm awake. I'm glad you're awake. I'm glad I'm continuing to prepare. And, even though we have this massive detachment from the market and reality, people can believe everything is okay. And I was just talking to somebody today, and I was just saying, there's so many people out there that are completely broke. They're working multiple jobs. They're working paycheck to paycheck. And they'll turn on the television today and go, oh, wow, the stock market was up and the news anchors are telling me everything's great. Even though I have no money, the savings rate's, 3.5%. I can never buy a house. I have $100,000 in college debt, $40,000 in auto payments, $10,000, $12,000 in credit card bills. And, I make $15 an hour and I have a college degree. But everything's great. Many of these people believe that everything is great, even though they have nothing. They're debt slaves, and they're always going to be debt slaves, and they're going to be broke for most of their life, probably their entire life, and they're going to be dependent on the system, and they believe that everything is good. This is how deranged everything is at this point, that if you keep sending this message across the television that everything is good, and you put the market in the green day after day after day, even people that have absolutely nothing and they're working paycheck, many of these people can't even make it from paycheck to paycheck. They're borrowing money before payday to cover their bills. And they're like, hey, everything's great. The market's great because it's in the green and the guy in the suit and tie told me everything's good. So everything's good. This is how brainwashed people are. This is how delirious this whole thing is at this point. TheEconomicCollapse.com. What is going to happen to our society as AI and robots take most of our jobs? They're saying that in the near future, the cost to operate AI and these robots will be about $2 to $3 per hour. That's a lot cheaper than paying somebody here in California $16, or if you work at a large food chain, you're getting $20 an hour. AI is going to be able to do this for $2 to $3. What human being is going to work for $2 to $3 an hour? Where are people going to work 5 and 10 years from now? This whole environment is going to look a lot different very, very soon. And if you think 5 years doesn't go by fast, we're going to be in a whole different world in 5 years. 10 years, a whole different world. Things are changing very, very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't have the solutions to all this, but I hope it makes all of you think. I think one thing we should all be doing is adding skill sets, learning how to do things. I think the more things you know how to do, the better your odds are to being able to earn an income. But if you only are one-dimensional, and this goes for just, preparing and your preparations. If you're one-dimensional, like, oh, I'm just going to, save up a bunch of cash and gold and silver, I'm going to be fine. That's not going to work. You have got to be multi-dimensional at this point. You've got to have multiple skills. You have to know how to do things. I have a Berkey right here. We have multiple Berkeys. Have a zero water over here. So, make sure that you have a way to filtrate water. Make sure you have food put away. Make sure you have emergency food, canned food. Make sure you have a way to heat up your food. Make sure you have extra firewood, charcoal, propane, extra propane canisters so you can run your jet boil or your Coleman stoves. Make sure that you can run your grills. These are things that I think are going to be very, very important down the road. And pray to God you never have to use this stuff. But if you do, thank God you have it. I mean, it's an insurance policy. It is an insurance policy. Nobody leaves the house going, I'm going to get in a car accident today. But guess what? It can happen. And what if it does? Do you have insurance? You know, how much is your life worth? How much are your kids' life worth? You know, do you think that maybe having a couple months of food put away, maybe just for your kids, I think that that's probably a really, really good investment. So I'm not going to go on here too much today. But again, I don't have all the solutions. But I think that, you know, if you can protect your home and your assets, if you can filtrate some water, if you have extra food put away, I think you're ahead of the game. And look, we're going to be told continually here that things are good and that they're improving. And people will get complacent. Don't get complacent. This thing can change really, really fast. You know, we know that when we look at an iceberg, that we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's what's underneath. There's a lot going on under the water, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on that most people aren't seeing. They don't care to see. They're not paying attention to. We are in very, very serious trouble. These are serious times. And again, you need to be able to protect yourself, your family. You need to be able to feed them. You need to be able to give them clean water. These are just some things that I think you should think about. This is a good place to start. First off, I would start with security. If you cannot protect your family and your assets and your food, you're in big trouble. It's not even worth having. It's just going to be taken. So I would start there, work my way down from security to food and water and then to hard assets like gold, silver, things like that, and then cover all your bases. Everybody lives in a different environment. Everybody has a different situation. Everybody, you know, has a different amount of money to work with. But there's no excuses that, you know, first off, security. There's no excuses that you can't go to the grocery store and buy some canned food and some bottled water. And at some point, you know, maybe you cut something out of your life and you buy a Berkey. Maybe you cut something out of your life and you go buy $1,000 worth of emergency food and put it away. Just things to think about, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's situation is different. I understand that. But not doing anything is a horrible strategy, one that will cost you. God bless every one of you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as usual, I look very, very forward to speaking with all of you very, very soon. Have a good evening. God bless.